Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cryptic Humility. My name is Vanessa Hurley. I am your host and guide. Today, we are on episode 20, and I hope you guys had an amazing long weekend, Memorial Day weekend. I decided to take the holiday off from the podcast. I always stress on the podcast that I never want starting a business to be something that absolutely dictates my life. I know that it will a majority of the time. But it's so important to find balance, and any holiday that I can take off to spend with my family, I like to. And I am sure you guys take the holiday off as well. I'm not sure who's interested in learning about crypto on Memorial Day weekend. But anyways, it's felt crazy not being here. I'm so into the pattern now of having the podcast and posting every single week for you guys that it feels weird, like something's missing when I haven't been posting. So that's a really good sign. The weather is finally getting nice in Massachusetts, and I'm just feeling super good about today's episode. A couple weeks ago, we had talked about crypto ETFs, and we were talking about Bitcoin miners as a crypto ETF that Grayscale offered. We also posted about that on LinkedIn, and we also talk about it on TikTok. So if you're looking for those resources, you can find them. But in today, we were going to be covering all the Bitcoin mining companies. And so unfortunately, I went down a huge rabbit hole of this. And we will be talking about Bitcoin mining companies, but that's going to be next week if we don't have a guest speaker. So it could be up in the air, because today I wanted to talk about all the software and the hardware that you may need if you want to become a Bitcoin miner yourself, if you want to get into crypto mining, and also just like a quick debrief of what actually is proof of work for Bitcoin. We did cover that in the blockchain technology podcast episode, so if you're interested in learning the cycle of a block, you can check it out there. Today, I'm going to be doing a quick debrief of that, and then I'm really going to be getting into some of the softwares and hardwares that you need and kind of understanding how Bitcoin mining works. And then I guess at the end, if we have enough time, because we do have current news and we have a lot to talk about in regards to the software, that we could talk about the pros and cons. But as I've stressed so many times on this podcast, one of the biggest cons of Bitcoin mining, and we'll just get it out here. It's the electricity use, the energy usage. And obviously they're like with mining farms, which we'll touch upon today, they all present issues in regards to electricity. So you have to be mindful of what it is. If you could actually, if you're okay with your, I guess I'm trying to say, if you're okay with your electricity bill being higher, if you invested in participating in Bitcoin mining. But nonetheless, let's get into this. Let's talk about Bitcoin mining, a quick debrief, and I'm very excited to share the current news with you guys today. Okay, so let's talk about what exactly Bitcoin mining is trying to achieve. So Bitcoin mining is the way in which that Bitcoin's blockchain is remaining decentralized while we're verifying transactions. Now, since we're relying on the technology technically to be a blockchain layer 1, which means that they can run independently and they can also verify and confirm transactions decentralized, we are putting more power to the people. And in doing that, we're allowing regular people, Bitcoin miners, crypto miners, if you will, to participate in helping the blockchain function. Now, they play their role by, in the briefest sense, confirming transactions and mathematical puzzles that are occurring so they can find the missing hash that your block is looking for. So as you do a transaction, and maybe you've done a couple transactions this month, eventually that's going to get stored into a block. When your block gets out into the blockchain itself, crypto miners can come in, and basically the Bitcoin blockchain will provide them certain protocols that will help them solve for a missing hash. So they may give you a timestamp, for example, or you may have access to some of the transactions in the block, or you may have information from a previous block that's been given to you. So all you need to know is that Bitcoin miners have the information that they need to be able to solve the puzzle, find the missing hash that meets and matches that block, which essentially confirms that this transaction is legit. It's a big process, and obviously there are critiques to Bitcoin mining and proof of work, which Bitcoin mining is called proof of work consensus mechanism. But there's been a lot of pros and cons about this process, how it's a little bit slower, how there's higher gas fees. And today, though, I wanted to touch upon, like I said, what it actually takes to be able to Bitcoin mine. And we're going to look into the two biggest or a couple of big hardware pieces that you can purchase and also the matching softwares of those. So, moral of the story for Bitcoin mining is that miners have the software, the technology, and the coding or the material provided to them to be able to solve and keep regenerating hashes until the first person matches the correct hash or the meeting hash of that block. No, it's very complex. It takes a long time to wrap your head around it. Hopefully today, with understanding what technology is needed and how it works, it will help you a little bit more. The first thing you need to start Bitcoin mining is a digital wallet. This is because as you mine, whether you're on Bitcoin or Ethereum, for example, as you start mining and you potentially solve for a missing hash and you are the one that confirms that block and sends it out into the sequence on the blockchain permanently, you actually can receive incentive from the blockchain. And a lot of people know that that incentive can be their native token. So if you're on Bitcoin's blockchain and you're mining with all the technology and stuff that you have, and you solve a missing hash correctly, then you can potentially get a Bitcoin as a reward, a certain allocation of Bitcoin as a reward. And so, where are you going to put that Bitcoin? First, you need a digital wallet. You need something that you can receive your earnings from. Okay, so bear with me because we're about to we're about to go through the thick of it with this podcast episode. So, I want to try to explain this to you guys in the easiest way possible. Number one is that there are 4 different hardwares that you could use to crypto mine or Bitcoin mine. I'm going to put them up on the screen, but also, just to read, it's ASIC, FPGA, GPUs, or CPUs. First, we're going to go into specific hardware. So if you're a beginner and you don't know where to start and what software you should potentially purchase, we're going to help you walk through this process today. So let's start out with talking about ASIC hardware. This is going to be the most traditional, maybe the most common. You probably already have heard of it before, potentially when Bitcoin mining gets brought up, but this is the first chip that was created to perform a specific task, and that specific task would be Bitcoin mining. This originated in 2012, and the reason why ASIC discs originated, and I will definitely put a visual up on the screen so you guys can kind of get what I'm trying to say here, but the reason why they were created and they exist is because as Bitcoin mining became more popular, more in demand, a lot of people were getting into it, making it that much harder to mine. The competition, meaning there were so many people trying to find the missing hash that you needed more computing power. Your computer right here wouldn't be able to do it for you. You'd need specialized software. The specialized software is called ASIC. And ASIC, like I just said to recap, is a disk that allows your computer or it works for your computer to perform specific tasks. I totally lied to you guys. I think it's actually going to be easier if we go through the software too. So bear with me. We're going to go through the software. So ASIC's matching software is CG Miner. This is an open source platform designed for Bitcoin mining. So you can mine Bitcoin, you can mine Litecoin, you can mine Dogecoin using CG Miner. When they're talking about an open source software or an open source program, what they're talking about is that multiple developers, individual developers, can actually utilize and help better the software. So the software is better improved, the bugs are fixed, there's less errors, and it can kind of update a lot faster than some of these other mining softwares. One of the most important things to note about CG Miner is that it operates on a command line program. Now, to disclaim this, to provide clarity, as we're going through these, 2 things that you might want to pay attention to when you're looking into Bitcoin mining and interested in doing it is that the softwares offer 2 separate versions or 2 separate styles, I would say. CG Miner on ASIC's hardware uses command line programs. Command line programs meaning that you have to manually input your commands into CG miner. Now, if you are not a experienced Bitcoin miner, this can be very confusing, considering that there is also software that can help connect to CG miner like Stratum, and Stratum connects you to mining pools that can help delegate tasks to different miners. So this is a very complex process. If you are new to Bitcoin mining, this wouldn't be my top suggestion for you, obviously. And also, if you're not very equipped into coding and understanding kind of how like manually inputting code works, this might be very challenging for you to start. CG Miner runs off Linux and Windows. If you were curious about, you know, okay, I want to buy this software, but I don't know if it will connect to my Mac or my, you know, whatever, your HP or whatever computer you have. One also that I wanted to mention is Awesome Miner. This is one that I looked into for beginners because the other style would be a GUI. A GUI is a little bit more beginner friendly. It's a little bit more intuitive. It's a little bit easier to use. It's not just your direct keyboard entering commands. There is more, I would say, navigation, more guidance, more help. And if you like the ASIC hardware, or you only want to do Bitcoin mining, only interested in doing Bitcoin mining, I would definitely recommend the ASIC. Now that you know that you need an ASIC, but you're a beginner, then Awesome Miner might be great. And also, if you have a Windows-based, that's even a computer, that's even better. This would be your best fit, in my opinion. Awesome Miner is known for its scalability and ability to manage large mining farms with features like remote management and profile switching. So mining farms are like huge, I don't want to say power plants, but kind of like crypto power plants where they have all ASICs or other kinds of hardware set up in there, like multiple computers that are computing or hashing and trying to verify Bitcoin transactions, or even just other crypto transactions like altcoins, which we'll talk about soon. The reason why with Awesome Miner I would recommend it to beginners is because GUI, as I just previously said, is more intuitive. It's easier to use. It's gonna, if you're not familiar with entering codes, this might help you get some guidance and a little bit more structure to be able to start inputting commands. All right, the next piece of software that I wanted to talk about is FPGAs. And what's interesting about FPGAs is that they're not just for crypto. They also have a lot of other purposes, like in aerospace, in imaging, like medical imaging, and automotive, telecommunication, aerospace even. Through my research, it's a lot less expensive than the ASICs, depending on which models you buy. And also what's really cool is even after the FPGA has been created, you can actually customize it to the exact functions that you need. So compared to the ASIC hardware where it's one job, one task, Bitcoin mining or crypto mining, the FPGAs have a little bit more freedom and flexibility in regards to, okay, maybe I do want to crypto mine, but also I need it for my career, or I need it because I do this, or it's multifunctional and it's more able to provide you with specifics of your niche or your exact needs after it's already been made. It's also just good for data computing. It's really good for complex data computing and just computing it efficiently. So the recommendation for FPGA software is actually BFG Miner, which can also be used on ASICs. So just like we covered CG Miner, and we talked about that CG Miner was a command line program, meaning that you had to manually input things. This software, BFG Miner, I'm getting like all the letters confused, but BFG Miner is the same. It's the same. It's not a GUI. It is a CLI. And it offers a lot more benefits. One of those benefits is dynamic clocking. And what was interesting about this is that basically the whole system just monitors itself. So it looks into its computing hash rate. It looks into its temperature. It looks into its time frames. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to balance out how many hashes per second it's generating, and also the energy usage and or electricity usage that it is absorbing. And also what's really cool is it monitors its own heat. So if you're looking for a little bit more monitoring benefits, and maybe if you're trying to collect feedback with Bitcoin mining, or if you're interested in computing more of a hash rate and you want to be able to see that, then this piece of software for FPGAs would be a really good resource for you. And also, it can be used for multiple other things. So that's good, because if you go through a phase and you no longer want to be doing Bitcoin mining, but maybe you have a passion in telecommunication or some other area, you could actually probably still use this chip or this item. Now, we didn't go much into coding in this podcast episode for good reason, because I don't want to confuse you guys enough. I already know we're throwing out like A, B, C, F, G minor. Like, we're talking about a lot of different like structures here. But for FPGAs, they run on HDLs. So for the coding, they use kind of like HDL. And obviously, I'm not a huge coder. I don't want to steer us off course, but eventually, maybe in my leisure time, if I'm looking for another episode one of these days, I would love to talk about the specific coding too that goes into these softwares. Again, though, BFG Miner is not typically user friendly. So you did have that you still chose ASIC, you only wanted to do Bitcoin mining. You could use BFG Miner, but the problem with BFG Miner is it's also not very user friendly, or I'm sorry, beginner user friendly, because you're using command line programs, you're manually inputting things, and you're very limited in that, and it's not very like intuitive navigation. So it could be if you don't watch like or take a couple classes or courses on how to really do it, it can definitely be challenging. Okay, so we went over ASIC hardware, we went over FPGA hardware. Now let's talk about our third avenue that you could go down, and that is GPU mining hardware. GPU mining hardware is again another multifunctional way to Bitcoin mine, or also use this hardware for multiple different other reasons, like video editing, gaming, or of course, if you still needed it for scientific computing or like mass computing, data processing, and doing so efficiently, this hardware would still be good to use. Now, my recommendation to anybody who's a beginner, and remember, this is not financial advice, this is just my suggestion, but based off doing research, is if you are new to Bitcoin mining, GPUs would be your best avenue. Number one is they have a huge resale value. And I always stress this to people, not that I want to like discourage people from doing Bitcoin mining, but like, let's say that Bitcoin mining isn't for you anymore, you know, it's not your calling, and you would kind of regret buying the software. It has a pretty good resale value. So if you are interested in reselling your software, not completely losing out on the experience, GPUs are really good for that, because they're used for gaming and a multitude of other different avenues that are pretty common in the world besides just Bitcoin mining. What's really cool too to pay attention to is that GPUs offer parallel processing. So if you are trying to generate hashes for Bitcoin mining, GPUs basically don't confirm things in a single line, like how a blockchain is like single transactions lined up, if you're envisioning. GPUs are parallel processing, meaning that they can confirm multiple transactions at once. And actually, we covered something similar to that in Solana, which is why I'm such a huge fan of Solana for companies that need payment processing and stuff like that, because they do parallel processing. And as long as these two blocks are not similar enough for the like smart contracts to raise a flag on it, the system can just do multiple transactions at once, or create multiple hashes at once. And therefore, the computing power is that much stronger. So GPU, beginner friendly, multi-purposeful, purposeful, if that's even a word, and they are highly functional. They offer faster speeds. You can use CG Miner with this, which was the first software that we talked about. You can use BFG Miner, which was the second one that we just talked about. Both of those, we were saying that they're command line programs. I'm just reiterating because I know it can get very confusing. We talked about Awesome Miner, which is another software, and now I want to draw our attention to with CPUs, Easy Miner. If you are a beginner, this might be the software for you. So this does not use command line programming. This uses graphical user interface. So it's a lot more hands-on, but in a good way. So there will be wizards, there will be guides, there will be like instructions on how to enter mining pools so you can collab with other people and kind of get in the game, put some skin in the game. And they also kind of teach you and guide you on how to mine solo. And this GPU hardware is just multifunctional. There are 3 different softwares that you can use. 2 are like the omegas of the Bitcoin mining. And that's actually another thing, is I'm sure if you guys do your research, which I always encourage you to do research through the podcast, there are probably so many other softwares that you could use, or maybe there's, more advanced, like ones that are doing more advanced hash rates and stuff. This is the traditional software, and just a brief, basically, overview for you in Bitcoin mining if you're interested and you don't really know how it works. So to recap for everything that we just talked about, number 1 is you need a digital wallet. 2 is you need to pick the correct hardware that you're looking for. What hardware will be best for you? Are you just trying to crypto mine, which would be potentially ASIC? Or are you looking to do, gaming and video editing and stuff like that? Then I would say GPUs. Or if you're more into your career and you align with aerospace or telecommunications or something, in that sphere, you could potentially start looking into FPGAs. And that hardware could benefit you in multiple different ways beyond Bitcoin mining. And there's one last software, like hardware, that we'll talk about. We're not going to talk about it too much, but I just want to throw it out there in case you guys are interested. But to recap on softwares, CG Miner, I'm losing my mind, BFG Miner, both CLIs, and then if you're a rookie and you're starting out, nothing wrong with that. Easy Miner is a beginner-friendly GUI that matches the GPU hardware, where you can kind of start getting your grounds on how all these things work. So that would be my number 1 recommendation. Obviously, if you're a pro, you do your own research, you figure out what works best for you, you make mistakes along the way, and you figure out maybe there's better software out there, and I'm sure that there is. Again, I just want to make sure that you guys kind of grasp the concept of how this works. So the 4th and final way that you can Bitcoin mine is actually through cloud mining. And here's the thing. Binance offers cloud mining. Now, we did a story on Binance a long time ago with like some suspicion of fraud. So I'd be very like weary there. I'm sure they're fine now, but cloud mining is completely different. It's not exactly like traditional Bitcoin mining, which is why I didn't want to talk about it too much. But if you guys have questions, right below in the podcast, if you want to hear more about this cloud mining and the platforms and stuff, I will definitely talk about it with you. But for now, I wanted to set you up with the 3 main heavy on trusted platforms and hardwares that you could purchase. And if you're interested in that, I'll link some things below for you to kind of get you started. Now, I know what you're thinking. You may be thinking that, what about quantum computers, Vanessa? What about quantum computers? Well, we're going to be talking about those also on next episode, because as I posted a educational post on TikTok, somebody was talking about how like blockchain can get easily hacked because of quantum computing or quantum computers. So we are absolutely going to be talking about that and seeing kind of what the effects of that are and how we can overcome that. And how can we make blockchain more secure? Because that's one of the biggest issues that we're facing in the market, is how do we make blockchain more secure, more trusted, more reliable, and pretty much invincible against hackers and scammers. All right, to the fun. I want to talk about the current news. This is a fun, light, hopefully happy topic if you're into soccer, or what FIFA will call football. And what is amazing is that in 2022, FIFA launched their whole NFT collection on Algorand blockchain. Now FIFA is looking to switch gears and is actually looking to create its first layer 1 blockchain on Avalanche. Avalanche is just another blockchain interface, but a layer 1 blockchain is when FIFA, for example, is able to have an ecosystem or a blockchain that's running independently and can confirm and verify transactions decentralized. And what's cool is now FIFA moved to Avalanche because Avalanche was expanding and it was offering a lot of opportunity, and FIFA was interested in participating in that. And they have a whole NFT marketplace now where if you're interested in buying, selling, or trading some of the things that they offer, which we'll touch upon, you can do that. Of course, they've been doing this since 2022, but they're starting to create their own interface or their own D app or NFT marketplace now, if you will. I would say NFT marketplace on Avalanche for people to access. So FIFA kind of has their own little world where their users and everybody who's a soccer fan could kind of dictate that atmosphere. So I'm gonna read you guys something that I think is really important to register like through this topic, and that is talking about Avalanche again and bringing us to that it was created by Ava Labs, a private Brooklyn-based company founded by Cornell professor Emin Gun Sear. Now, what's cool about this is he is well known into cryptocurrencies for creating Karma, the first proof of work protocol that predated Bitcoin by 6 years. So this guy that created Avalanche or was a co-creator in Avalanche was one of the first people ever to concept or conceptualize proof of work consensus mechanism, which is Bitcoin mining. Two examples of layer one blockchains that are good to focus on is Bitcoin and Ethereum at their core. So FIFA is trying to operate like Bitcoin or Ethereum at their core. Now, what I mean by at their core is their simple tasks, their core values, what they were originally created to perform. Obviously now Ethereum has dApps and they have this whole interface and you can lend crypto as in like loans, and then you can just all this stuff that you can now do on Ethereum's interface. But at first, all you could do was buy and sell Ether, if you will, and also have the system confirm and regulate that transaction for you. So FIFA is kind of trying to start its layer one blockchain, and then who knows, it could obviously scale. But let's talk about some of the NFTs that are interested that you should look into if you are a soccer fan or if you're really into FIFA. So the first NFT worth noting is that it has an NFT called Moments, and Moments is where you can potentially own an NFT that has ownership of a specific moment. So whether that was a save or a goal or an assist or like some iconic moment that happened at the FIFA World Cup in 2009, for example, you could actually purchase a token, that NFT, that you would claim ownership of that moment. Then we go into limited edition NFTs. Obviously, these are more traditional NFTs for, infamous players that might have been in the past, like the 80s or the 70s, for example. There also are surprise packs, and surprise packs could just be a collection of different kinds of NFTs inside. They do glory NFTs, which is if you purchase or, you win the bid to own this NFT, you could win special content or special experiences through FIFA, like going to special events and stuff like that. And the last one, and potentially the best one, is NFT tickets, which is you have a chance of winning a ticket to be able to go to the FIFA World Cup, or also just like huge FIFA events, like if any of the soccer players are talking at certain events, like it kind of similar to the last one we just touched upon, but you could actually win a chance to go to the World Cup and watch it. Definitely very interesting if you are a soccer fan. Can't say myself that I am a soccer fan. I was good at every sport growing up, and I don't even mean to say that like that, but genuinely, I played every sport growing up. I was decently good at everything besides soccer. I just could never use my feet, and I just so uncoordinated from the bottom half down. But in all other sports, softball, basketball, I did field hockey, I everything, pretty much everything that you could name of, I did fairly well. But If you're into FIFA, definitely check that out. I will link it down below again on Avalanche so you can look into it. And again, if there's any questions about anything we covered today, I know that there's so much more that we could talk about in Bitcoin mining. I want to keep moving forward. We have, other things coming on the podcast as well. But if you do have questions, make sure to comment them on Spotify, or if you're listening on Apple, just email us directly at Cryptic Humility. If you do have a question, we want to be able to get it answered for you and give you the feedback that you need, that sometimes honestly Google just can't give you. And especially in crypto, if you're trying to Google things and find answers, right now it can be very challenging to find what you need. So if you are looking for an extra hand in any guidance, definitely reach out and I will be able to help you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great week. We will definitely be in touch this week. Stay tuned for things coming on the show as we've talked about. And I will see you guys next Monday. Thank you.